That impressive. That's this Walker team. Folks, y'all are impressive, and it is an honor for me to be here today. And I hope I'm going to say a few things this morning. I hope. Let me say this. You're probably going to hear nothing new that you haven't already heard from somebody. But what I would like to share with you all is a little bit of some things that helped me with my career. And as I go back, and I'm going to go way back. I'm going to go way back to when I was a freshman in high school. And I remember sitting in and wide-eyed going my freshman year, going in there. And one of the first things that we had this large assembly. And it wasn't the principal that came up. It was the student body president. And I remember that student body president, a guy named Joe, still a friend of mine now today. And I came up and I was like, wow. I heard him speak and I said, I want to be like that guy right there. And afterwards in my freshman year, I kind of asked him, I said, Joe, how do you do that? I can't even imagine standing up in front of all those students and doing that. How do you do it? And he gave me what started some things that I started writing down, what I call traits of successful people. Because as I've gone through my career, I've kind of looked at people that have excelled, that kind of have risen to the top. And I can tell you, it didn't matter what field I was working with at that time, a lot of them exhibited some of the same traits. And Joe told me this first one, something very simple. And he says, Chris, set goals. Set goals. That always resonated with me, and to this day, I still set goals. Whether it's professional goals, personal goals, whatever. I set goals and I try to live up to those goals and reach those goals or try to exceed those. Let me give you some examples of how that's worked for me. Let me go back to the beginning of my career at Northwestern State University. Obviously, I didn't start as president of the university. I started as the women's track and field and cross-country coach to be able to start the program at Northwestern. Well, folks, that was one of my first goals. You see, I became a teacher, and I became an educator, and I was a high school teacher. One of my first goals is I wanted to coach in college. Okay? And I was very fortunate, 2 years into my career, I was able to land a job at Northwestern, my alma mater, to be able to coach. I'd run track and cross country for them, and I was able to come back and start the women's track and field and cross country program. A goal. But I learned right quick, just because you reach one of those milestones, it doesn't stop there, right? So let me tell you about that first year when I became the track and field cross country coach. Let's go back to that fall in cross country. I don't know if y'all are familiar with running or cross country running or racing. But in college, it's a 3-mile race. Okay? And so you line up and you run in different venues. It might be golf courses or out on trails or whatever. But you have a team, and the team is comprised of 7 runners. Okay? And then you add up the scores. You run the race, and as they finish, you add up the scores, and the one that gets the winning team is the one with the lowest score. So if you get first place, you get 1. If you get second place, 2, 3, whatever. And then you add the scores and get lowest. So let's run that first year. So I started out, first thing I did when I came in, I said, look, we're going to buy some new uniforms, because I firmly believe if you look good, you feel good, you're going to run. You're going to run well. You want to feel good about yourself. So I bought these beautiful purple and white uniforms, the school colors. And we ran, and when I got in there, my first couple of weeks on the job, I realized my phone was ringing, which was exciting, talking to these other coaches from other schools. They were calling, hey, coach, would you like me to come run in our races? Man, this was great. I'm getting called that. Then I kind of realized, while they were calling me a few weeks later, is we weren't very good. They knew that they were going to beat us. So that was why that phone was ringing. And it happened. Unfortunately, it happened a lot that first year. We always trained for the conference championship. So here it was. The conference championship was actually held on our home course in Natchitoches. And I was excited. The community was coming out. A lot of buzz, a lot of excitement, even though we weren't very good. I knew we were bad, but I didn't realize how bad. Well, let's go to that conference championship, the Southland Conference Champion. There was 10 teams in the conference, 7 runners each. So y'all help me out with my math. I'm not very good. 10 teams, 7 runners. How many runners in the race?
7.
7. I remember we ran on the golf course, and there's a big hill, and then there was the finish line right here. And I was standing there with all the other coaches. They fired the gun, and about 17, 18 minutes later, here come the runners finishing up over this hill. And here come the runners, the first ones, and here come the middle ones, and then here come the last ones. And guess what? I'm still looking for those beautiful purple and white uniforms I'm on. And about 2 minutes later, after the last finishers came in, here comes some joggers, not runners, coming down that hill. with those beautiful purple and white uniforms. Folks, when I say we were last, we weren't last. We were 64th, 65th, 66th, 67th, 68th, 69th, 70. We weren't last, we were dead last. And if you've never been dead last in something, you can't understand what I'm talking about. But there is a difference. And I remember that day, what I did is I kneeled down and I said, I'm going to do one of two things. Number one, I quit. I quit. I can't take this. Or number two, this ain't going to happen again. Thank goodness I took that second choice, because I said it ain't going to happen again. So I'm going to fast forward to the next year. We called in for that first team meeting. I realized some things I'd done wrong. One thing I'd done wrong, we didn't set a goal. So I helped them. Sometimes you're going to set goals internally and self-goals, and other times other people help you along with those goals. And I said, we're going to help them with that. I called the team in, and I said, we're going to set some goals. And we're going to work for those goals. And I tell you what, in 4 years, ladies, we're going to be the conference champions. And you know what they did when I said that? They laughed. Thank you. They laughed. You see the culture we had. We're going to be the conference champion. And this year, we're going to set a goal. And I said, we're just not going to be last. They laughed again, but kind of said, well, we can do that. They thought that might be easier. We trained hard, we worked hard, we go and it comes to the conference championship race again. This time we go and we run at Sam Houston State University in Huntsville, Texas. So let's do that scenario again. The gun fires, goes off for a race. Here comes the finish. What's our goal? We're not going to be last this year. The race comes in. Here comes the first part of the race. Here comes the middle part of the race. Guess what I see? A couple of those purple and white uniforms. Toward the back, a few more of those purple and white uniforms. The race finishes, and guess what I did? I looked back to see if there's anybody coming out over that hill. And there was nobody. We're in there. We're going to meet this goal. We added up the scores at the end of the race, and guess what place we were?
Ninth.
We were 10th. But we weren't dead last. We were last. Next year they come in for the team meeting. What's our goal in 3 years? We're going to be the conference champions. Few giggles. What are we going to be this year?
Conference champion.
This year. They said we're not going to be last. I said, oh, no. That's last year's goal. We're going to be in the top 5. We're going to be in the top 5. We go, we race, and we run years, show some improvement. We go to San Marcos, Texas, Southwest Texas State at the time, Texas State University now. Run the conference championship. The race goes off. Front part of the race. Whoo! I see a couple of purple and white uniforms. Middle of the race, I see them. Back of the race, guess what? Other teams. We added up the scores after that race. Anybody want to guess what we were? 6th. 6th place. Come back in the next year. What's our goal going to be in 2 years? We're going to be the conference champion. What's our goal this year? They said top 5. I said that's last year. We're going to be in the top 3, folks. We go, we run all year long. We go to Nacogdoches, Texas, Stephen F. Austin State University. Run that conference meet. Boom. Race goes off. Front part of the race, here they come. Middle part of the race, few in there. Back, nobody. Add up the scores in that Southland Conference meet. 4th. Next year, what's our goal? Hey, what did they do 4 years ago? They laughed at our goals. Can't make them. What did we do this year? What's our goal, ladies? Conference champion, coach. What did we do? We did everything right all year long. I hired a nutritionist. I hired a sports psychologist. Heck, I even hired a hypnotist. But we were going to be the conference champions. And folks, we went out and we ran and that race that year was going to be at University of Louisiana in Monroe. All 9 teams besides us stayed that night in Monroe. Not us, we stayed in Ruston. We focused. We didn't want to be apart. We're going to meet y'all halfway and we're going to run that race. It was a beautiful morning, just like it is this morning. And man, I remember everything about it. Everything was there. My nutritionist was there, my psychologist was there, and the hypnotist was there. We had it all. And folks, it was a thing of beauty. The gun fired and off they went. I told them, this is your race, you stay focused. If somebody comes up beside you, just give them a little elbow, because this is your lane. And folks, it was a thing of beauty. We made that first loop around there, first mile, guess what I saw? I saw some beautiful purple and white uniforms. And I saw some blue and white. That was Texas Arlington. And I saw some white, blue, and orange. That was University of Texas San Antonio. And there was nobody else. 3-horse race. Run through that second mile. More distance between those teams. But look at those purple and white, looking great. 3rd mile, they finished the race, and here it comes. Feeling good. Get there, we add up the scores of that race. And those young ladies finished third. So I come over there, and I talk to them after, and I gather up. Because it's not like a football game where you can see the score. You run, and you try to figure out what you run, and we come back, and they smile, and I told them they finished third. And guess what they did? They cried. They cried. And why did they cry? Because it meant so much. They had set their goals so high. And they said, Coach, we failed you. We let you down. And I said, time out. Time out. 4 years ago, what were you?
Dead last.
Thank you, sir. You weren't last. You were dead last. You know, you were the team that, that homecoming game that everybody calls this team because they want to beat them. That was us. Okay? We saw so many homecoming dresses and all that. That was us. We were dead last. And I said, look at you now. You're crying because it meant a lot. And you didn't fail. Just look at all the successes along the way that you've had. When they named the All-Louisiana team of 7 runners, 5 of them from our team. The All-Southwest region, 3 of them from our team. One young lady went to the United States Junior National Championships in Boston, Massachusetts, and finished 3rd in America. That's the successes along the way. Folks, goal setting. You might not ever reach that goal, but your successes along the way are going to be much greater than when you start. So number 1, set goals. Number 2, of a trait of a successful person is commitment. Commitment to what? Commitment to those goals. Let me tell you a little story. There was a man in South Louisiana. He owned a seafood distributing company. And he had 3 young men that worked for him that happened to be brothers. So one day, there was a knock on the door, and it was the father of those 3 sons who worked for this guy. And he came in, and he had known this man for a long time. And he says, it's great to see you. They did their introductions and all. He said, well, what brings you down here today? He said, man, first of all, I want to thank you for giving my 3 sons a job. But he said, there's something that's been kind of bugging me. They've all been working for you about the same time, but you pay one of them $7,000 a month. You pay another one $5,000 a month. And the third one, $3,000 a month. Again, I appreciate it, but can you tell me why? The guy kind of smiled. He says, well, it may take a while. The guy said, I got all day. He said, well, it may take all day. So he said that. So he looked at some papers on his desk, and he realized he picked up the phone call. He called that first son, the son that he paid $3,000 a month. And he called him up on the phone. He says, I heard a boat just came to the docks outside of New Orleans. Would you go down there and see what's on board? 5 minutes later, the phone rang. Boss man, I didn't even have to go down there. I got a friend that works on the docks. I called him, and a boat did just come in, and it's carrying 1,000 pounds of shrimp. The boss said, thank you so much. Hung up the phone. He then called the second son. The son, he pays $5,000 a month. Gave him the same thing. I heard a boat just came into the docks outside of New Orleans. Would you go down there and see what's on board? An hour later, the phone rang. Boss man, I just went down to the docks outside of New Orleans. You're right, a boat just came in. It's carrying 1,000 pounds of shrimp. Boss said, thank you so much. Hung up the phone. He then called the third son with the same request. Heard a boat just came into the docks outside of New Orleans. Would you go down there and see what's on board? 3 hours later, there was a knock on the door. He told the dad to go in the other room. Come on in. It was that third son. Boss man, I went down to the docks, and a boat just came in. It's carrying 1,000 pounds of shrimp. They all look good. I got them. We had customers looking for those shrimp. Bought them for $3 a pound. Sold them for $5. Made us a couple $1,000. Also on their boat, there was also 1,000 pounds of oysters. We had another customer who was looking for those oysters. Sold them. $2,500 profit. Also on that boat, there were some redfish. And I know that you like to handle the redfish sales yourself. So I took an option out on those redfish for 3 hours. I inspected them. They looked great. I got a customer waiting if you approve. And this thing is done. I appreciate it. Let him go. Went out the door. The father came out the back room. He said, now, do you see why I paid one of them $3,000 a month, one $5,000, and one $7,000? What did the first son do? What did the guy ask him to do? Go down there and see what's on board. Took a shortcut. Didn't do it. Called a friend. Boat came in, gave him the information. What did the second one do? Just what he was told. Her boat came in, would you go down there and see what's on board? He reported it back. But what did the third one do? Above and beyond. Which one was committed to that organization and had that self-awareness that they could go down there and do above and beyond? Commitment, number 2. Number 3, very important, folks, positive attitude. Positive attitude.
Yes.
And sometimes when we look around today, we see that might be missing. But I'm telling you, it goes a long way. I didn't pay attention to a lot of things in college sometimes, unfortunately, especially that psychology class that I took, because it wasn't that very interesting. But I did one time in a perfect note because they started talking about attitude. And a positive attitude. The instructor said there's 4 phases of attitude. And the 4 phases of attitude, and I said, it kind of struck me. I said, all right, what are those 4 phases of attitude? So the first phase was excitement. When you start something new, how do you feel? Excited. New job? Excited. New relationship? Excited. New church? New whatever? Excited. Okay? I'm going to do it. This is great. I'm hired. I got a job. I'm excited. Well, they said that excitement phase lasts about 4 to 6 weeks. Sometimes I think it's till when your first paycheck comes. But it's 4 to 6 weeks is that excitement phase. And then after that excitement phase, you move into that second phase of attitude, which is frustration. Frustrated. Wait a minute. They didn't tell me that when they hired me. They didn't tell me these nights and weekends. They didn't tell me that. They stay frustrated. And sometimes that frustration can last just a few minutes through a lifetime. And you've seen some of those folks that you go that are frustrated in their jobs, and they walk in and they have the attitude, if I'm frustrated, then you're going to be frustrated. So we know those things. So when people get in that frustration phase, they then move into that third phase of attitude, and that is start looking. Start looking for what? Start looking for a new job. Start looking for a new relationship. Start looking. And guess what? It's got to be better. It's got to be better over there. And they start looking, and guess what? They find something. And when they find something new, what phase do they go to? Excitement. This is great. I told you it's better. How long does that last? 4 to 6 weeks. Then you move into frustration. And then you're looking to start looking, and it's a cycle. And they go from excitement to frustration to start looking. Well, wait a minute, Chris. You said there are 4 phases of attitude. What's that 4th phase? Recommitment. Recommitment to why you started it in the first place. Being committed to that. Positive attitude. My 4th trait of successful people as I've moved along through my career working with different folks is self-confidence. Self-confidence. Folks, let me tell you something. If you don't have confidence in yourself, in your abilities, how do you expect other people to have confidence in you as well? Folks, I believe it's important in believing. You're worked, you're trained, you're educated. You can do it. Being confident in your abilities, whether that's confident in yourself, confident in the work that you do. And I heard this one time from somebody that I look up to that talk. They said they believe in 3 things when they talk about that. Number 1, do what's right. Do what's right. Wouldn't we be better off if you do what's right? And folks, don't listen to what you hear or say. I don't get in all that. You know what's right and what's wrong.
Yeah.
You know it. Do what's right. I picked up something from another group that was very successful in their marketing, and that was the Army. And I remember them saying one time, be the best that you can be. Be the best that you can be. And folks, let me tell you this.